Hello everybody. Happy Thursday, August 23rd. I'm up in the mountains today and I'm enjoying myself. I feel like I'm back on, when I was a kid I used to watch a TV show called The Waltons. And this reminds me a lot of The Waltons. If you ever grew up watching that show, that means you've got to be at least, I don't know, 48 years of age or something like that. So anyway, I feel like I'm out in the middle of nowhere. This is considered, I guess, Spokane Valley that I'm at in Washington. It's close to Spokane. It's like east northeast of Spokane. So welcome to the wilderness where I am currently stationed in my journey across America, helping people get set free and delivered and enjoying life and not striving and not fighting and not arguing and learning about spirits that affect and control the bulk of people around the world. So anyway, welcome everyone. Welcome Jessica. Welcome Ovi. Welcome Tina Marie from College Station, Texas. Welcome everybody. So I have moved on from Idaho to Spokane Valley, Washington, and I moved to stay in the home of one of my team members, Autumn Casanova Davis, and her husband Matt. And last night they made a lovely Mexican dinner. Hadn't had Mexican food for a while, so got to enjoy burrito and some other things that were tasty. And then afterwards I was like, hey, do you guys have any place to like go for a hike? Because I know they love to go hiking, and I love to do hiking and exercise and adventures and so forth. And they're like, well, yeah, in our backyard we have like a wilderness area that has lots of different animals on it. And so we ended up taking their white German Shepherd, who looks just beautiful. I mean, I've never seen a white German Shepherd before, but a beautiful dog that likes to chase deer. So they have to make sure they keep it on a leash, otherwise it will take off and run and be gone for hours, trying to chase down large bucks and so forth. So we came out here last night, and I was kind of noticing some of the places, and the sun was going down. It was very pretty. And I asked them, I go, what kind of wildlife do you guys have here out in the wilderness? And they're like, well, we've got a lot of deer, of course, and they have some cougars, which I'm like, I've never seen a live cougar out in the wilderness before. So maybe on the show today we'll see a cougar, walk from behind me and say hi to everybody. Also, I asked them if they had any bears, and she said, well, I've never seen any bears, but we did find some bear poop. I guess they have a nice name for the name poop. I can't remember what it was, scat or something like that. So and I asked them, I said, how do you know that's bear poop? And they said, well, there's berries in it. I'm like, oh. And I started having a thought, thinking, do bears ever eat like animals? And they're like, well, not normally. They normally just like eat fish and eat berries. And I'm like, well, how do they stay that big without eating like a turkey or a deer or something like that? So they weren't sure exactly how that happened. And then I asked them if they had any snakes here, because of course I was down in the Tri-Cities about 2.5 hours from here, and there was a rattlesnake, of course, in the front door. Only me gets to experience something like that. And they said that, well, yes, we do have bull snakes, Matt said. And he said bull snakes are like, I don't know, about that big around. And I said, well, what do they eat? He said, well, they're the only snake that actually eats rattlesnakes. And I'm like, wow. I go, I'll need to have a pet bull snake to take with me the next time I go to the Tri-Cities so that they can eat all the rattlesnakes that are out there. So anyway, I feel like I'm out, again, like on Walton's Mountain today. There's like a mountain behind me. You can see right there. And there's lots of pine trees everywhere. I am not in the desert anymore. And the smoke is mostly cleared out. You can see for miles that direction, which I may show you at the end of the show. And so anyway, I asked the Lord this morning, what should I talk about? He said, I want you to talk about finding purpose and peace in your wilderness season. Because we all have to go through wilderness seasons. And the Lord will take you into the wilderness in order to speak to you, trying to get your attention, essentially about your purpose, your calling, and to also get you to have more peace. But you're oftentimes going to be humbled in the wilderness season. And the purpose of that is to remove the pride that's in your life. Hello, Anna. Anna's out in Virginia, I think, so she's out there in Walton's Mountain territory. So anyway, the Lord wants to remove the pride that's in our lives and the other things that are in our lives that need to go. He wants us to be brought to the end of ourselves. We want to not have to go through that. We don't like to have to suffer. We don't like to have to do without. We don't like to have, pain in our lives, but there's purpose in the pain that will change us into the person that God truly has created us to be. Michelangelo, for example. Michelangelo was a famous sculptor, and Sistine Chapel and David and so forth, and he would look at a blob of stone or marble, and he would start to chip away. There's flies around me. Chip away, go away fly, shoo fly. And he would chip away basically at the pieces that were not a part of the end product. He would actually look at that piece of marble or stone and say, okay, I can see what the final product's going to be. So he would take the time then to sculpt away and to get away from the pieces that were not a part of the final product. That's what the Lord's doing to us in our wilderness season, is to basically take away things that should not be in our lives. If we have been hurt by mother wounds and father wounds or violated sexually, and then the Lord wants to help us to forgive those that have hurt us so that the enemy will ultimately be taken away from tormenting us in our minds. And also we need to be humbled. There's a lot of people in churches, a lot of people in leadership positions, unfortunately, that are not humble. And so the Lord will have to take them, out of their comfort zones, out to the wilderness, to where everything's stripped away, completely taken away. We have to die to ourselves. And then at the end of the season of wilderness, then we are becoming the person that we were supposed to be all the time, that God created us to be. So you think about it, Moses, a third of his life, 40 years of his life were spent literally in the wilderness, where he grew up, in great wealth. He was the prince in Egypt and so forth, and he had all this money, all this food that was extravagant to eat, all these women and so forth that loved him and thought he was hot and handsome and all that. Well, then he was taken away into the wilderness, where God was chipping away at the old Moses and creating the actual Moses that was going to be used later to take out 1 million people, the Hebrew people, who then became Israelites in the desert. And those people grumbled and they criticized, and they ended up having to die. Literally, they died to themselves. They died. They did not get rid of the pride that was in their lives, and wanted to worship idols and so forth. So the Lord took them all out, and unfortunately Moses could not go into the promised land either. But a lot of sacrifice has to go on during your wilderness season. A lot of stuff you don't want to go through, but you need to go through it. And in the end, if you allow the Lord to take you through that season without grumbling, without complaining, and saying there's greater purpose now in the pain, greater purpose in the wilderness season for my life, then he will use you in a great way, in a powerful way. So it may not be fun going through that, but in the wilderness experience, the believer may struggle, simply to survive day to day, financially. All the money could be completely taken away from you. Materially, physically, you may have a lot of pain going through. Emotionally, you may have so many burdens pressing in on you that you don't think you can go on another day. The flesh is crying out, and desiring to be have relief, but the believer is forced to wait on the Lord, to trust in the Lord, to find God's peace, and joy in the midst of the trouble. And through it all, it will mature you in Christ. So I know I've gone through a lot of stuff. I know other friends of mine have gone through a lot of things. And the Lord's now finally taking them into the ministry full time. And it's starting to grow the ministry, trying to, going to use them powerfully. But they've had to go through sometimes 50 years, 55 years, 60 years worth of a lot of struggle, a lot of pain, a lot of hell. And then finally, the Lord takes them into their ministry and their callings. So, Paul offers this encouragement for those who have gone through that stuff. He said, have this treasure in jars of clay. We are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. We always carry around in our body the death of Christ, so that the life of Christ may also be revealed in our body. 2 Corinthians 4, 7 through 10. So the reason for all these trials, all these tribulations, all this wilderness season in your life is for what? What purpose? It's to show that this all-surpassing power is actually from God, not from us. So again, we have to humble ourselves. We need to humble ourselves. We need to look at ourselves in the mirror instead of pointing the finger at our loved ones or at our ex-spouses or whomever, our moms or our dads, and say, okay, do I need to change? Do I need to go through anything of chipping it away from my life? Do I need to give up certain vices in my life and addictions? Do I need to get rid of Jezebel, Leviathan, Ahab? Absolutely you do. Absolutely. If you've not gone through deliverance of those spirits, the strong men that the enemy has, then you must get delivered from that. You must choose to forgive those that hurt you. You must humble yourself and then command the spirits to go. My wilderness season really didn't start until after my first wife and the divorce that happened. 17 years of marriage. I was very devastated. I was very humbled. And I began the process of the Lord preparing me for what I'm doing today, where I had to lose everything essentially. And then I got remarried, and then that went through more of a wilderness season even on top of that, where I had to sacrifice and give more. And then to not tell anybody all the stuff I was going to have to go through, all the sacrificing, all the abuse and so forth. I had to keep quiet about it. And the Lord was preparing me, because in order to lead people, lead the billions of people around the world that are suffering from the spirits of Jezebel, Leviathan, and Ahab, I had to go through that at a deep level. I had to understand and know those spirits, what their capabilities were, how they operated, how they worked. And the Lord wouldn't tell me what I was going through. He said, you have to go through this. Don't tell anybody about this. And in the end, it will all be worth it. And so I had to trust him to go through all that stuff. So now that I've come out the other side, I'm experiencing, a great amount of peace, great amount of joy every day. It's like I look forward to every day waking up, because it's like a vacation. It's like, where am I going to go to next? I don't know. I don't know where the Lord's going to take me, even next week. I'm supposed to be going to Portland, Oregon, but the people are still trying to arrange some venue for me to have the place held at. So I'm like, I don't worry about it. I don't worry about nothing. I don't complain about anything. All of my needs are taken care of. But it stretched me going through that season of wilderness in an extreme way to becoming the person that I am today, so that I can help other people, so that I can have compassion for other people, so I can look past the pain that's in their lives. Because if they're struggling today, say, with sexual issues, they're struggling with being honest, they're struggling with pride, I can call out who they truly could be in Christ, but they have to be willing to admit and to look in the mirror at themselves to come through that process. But we don't want to be condemning, we want to be loving, but we also want to be honest. And that can be a challenge for some people. Some people aren't ready to receive that, so they may take several more months or a year before they finally can look in the mirror at themselves and to be honest. So now that I know my purpose, now that I have peace, it is worth it all in the end. But I had to not complain to everybody. I couldn't call everybody and all my best friends and say, woe is me, I'm going through all this hell, please lament with me, please help me. Now you may have a certain amount of friends that the Lord has set you up with that are in your inner circle that you can express some of your challenges, but understand that when you're going through things that are hard, look into it as this is the way God's going to stretch me, because there's some greater purpose that the Lord's taking me into, and it will all be worth it in the end. In the end, you won't have to go through this hell forever. But again, if you don't learn from that, if you don't change, you don't become the person that God's creating you to be, then you may have to go through like the Israelites did. They ended up dying out without coming into the promised land that they have called into. You don't want to do that. You don't want to be 100 years old, look back at your life and say, man, I really messed things up. I didn't walk into the promised land. I didn't allow the choice of choosing to be honest. I ended up keeping a secret all these things and never changing, never becoming the person the Lord wanted me to become. So all that being said, there is great peace that can come from the wilderness. Oh wow, I see a bird that could be an eagle that's flying. I don't know. They apparently they do have bald eagles here, and they also have a lot of hawks. And I don't know, maybe I'll flip my camera around. I guess I can. Hold on for a second, guys. So let me see here. Ding. See if I can see it. There it is. Trying to find it on my... Well, we'll see if it flies back around here. Anyways, I don't see it now, so maybe it landed. Anyway, I am up here on top of the mountain, and you can see from a higher perspective, you know, when you're on top of the mountain than you can when you're in the valley. And when you're in the wilderness, sometimes you feel like you're in the valley and you can't see because of the trees that are in front of you. All you can see is your circumstances and the pain, and you want to get out of that pain. But there's purpose in that pain. And eventually, as you go through, it stretches you when you don't complain about it. And then eventually it all becomes clear, and you can see for miles and miles and miles, like you can here. It all becomes clear because oftentimes when you're going through the wilderness, all you do is not like the pain and suffering. But understand, if you trust the Lord, He does have good things for you. He makes all things work together for your good according to His purpose, but you have to be in His will. You cannot fight it. The longer that you fight it, the longer that you'll stay in that wilderness, and you don't want that. You want to have the greaterness, the joy, and the peace. So, good analogy. Anyway, it took me a while to find this place. I had to keep walking and walking and walking around. But it was worth it. And there could be bear out there on top of the mountain, on top of Walton's Mountain there. There could be cougars out there. And yes, get delivered, not divorced. So anyway, I'll say this. I'm not sure, I don't think I shared this before, but I've learned that on my Uplift TV network, they're adding a new cable station that's going to carry the show. It is called Spectrum. Spectrum is is the merger between Time Warner Cable and Charter. So Spectrum, that will be starting, I don't know if it's this Sunday or next Sunday, but shortly, to where you can watch Uplift TV. And I got another phone call. I get phone calls every day from people watching it. There was a woman that called from North Carolina and said that she was really touched by the show because it explained everything. She's like, oh my gosh, finally, now I understand, you know, why my husband's going through this, you know, why he's not treating me the way that he should be treating me, and why I'm having to go through this pain and stuff. So anyway, it's a great joy to see the network continue to build out and get stronger, have more people that watch it and get more people set free and delivered. And they're also going to be, by the end of this year, Amazon Prime, they're adding, that will get like another 90 million people, I think, that can watch the show. So the Lord's on the move, and I know that Jezebel is getting more press, you know, in the religious circles. You know, we've talked about how President Trump has had to battle, you know, Jezebel and Leviathan twisting. You know, it's just incredible the stuff that he has to go through and endure. And he has to battle, of course, some of his past. But he's not the same person anymore. He's changed. He's a different person. So we have to pray for him. And we've heard about, you know, Bill Hybels at Willow Creek and some sexual things there that came out. And it's sad, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the church that need to be dealt with. And the only way to deal with it effectively is through deliverance. You know, we can't just tell a person to stop sexually sinning if they keep hearing the voice of the enemy, keep having images coming in. They need to get delivered. Once they get delivered, they become a different person. So that's just going to continue to grow, you know, the ministry of Restored to Freedom. And so it's, I'm thankful and grateful for all those that have already become a part of Restored to Freedom, that have financially sown into the ministry, and those that have become certified, because the Lord wants to use you to help others get set free and to get delivered. So this Sunday, we'll be doing the next worldwide deliverance session, Sunday night at 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. And if it's clear enough, I may do it outside again from the Tri-Cities, overlooking some of the mountains. So I always like to do it outside if we possibly can when it's Pacific time, because it's daylight out here. And then next week, by September 1st, we're looking to secure a venue for me in Portland, Oregon. And then I'll be heading on down to California, spending 3 weeks in California before heading to Arizona, through Arizona to New Mexico, and then back to Texas. I'll be in Texas in October and starting to do some more TV show recording the second week of October. So anyway, and I'll be announcing, I've got a new lady that's going to be joining me at Restored to Freedom. She'll be starting the day after Labor Day, full-time. She's been working with me the last couple of weeks, and I'm excited because this is going to help to give me more time to do what I need to do to continue to keep up with the demand and to do the things the Lord wants me to do, to manage this from a successful perspective when it comes to growing and the growth that's happening. And so it'll actually help me to more than double the ability of getting people set free. So I will announce who that is officially the day after Labor Day, and it's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. Looking forward, and God is on the move. So enjoy yourself today, even if you're in the wilderness season. You know, you need to go through it. You need to stretch yourself. You need to humble yourself, and it will all be worth it in the end. You ultimately have to trust the Lord. The Lord's got your back. The Lord's going to provide. The Lord's going to take care of you. No, it's not fun, so try to limit your complaints, especially on Facebook, especially to your friends, because no one likes to hear a complainer. Yes, it's not fun going through things, but it's all for the greater good of you and the Lord. So, all right, love you guys. See ya. Bye-bye.